4 decades of broadcasting excellence are about to come to an end for 13 News Now and Hampton Roads.
That's right. Emmy award-winning military reporter Mike Gooding is retiring. He started back in 1985. He traveled all over the world covering military operations. There he is. Looks pretty young there.
Yeah.
He visited 19 countries and embedded with U.S. forces in 3 wars: Kosovo, Afghanistan, and Iraq. He also interviewed numerous politicians, including Presidents Obama and Trump. He spent 10 years in Richmond covering the General Assembly. And starting in the mid-90s, he has headed up our annual Holiday Salute show. I've been helping him out with that lately. It's been fun. Over the next few nights, Mike will take a look back at some of his favorite stories. Tonight, he travels back to 2000 and his trip to Vietnam.
25 years ago in 2000, the 25th anniversary of the official end of the Vietnam War, we decided to go back. Our task was to document the noble work of Joint Task Force Full Accounting as they search for remains of U.S. missing in action military personnel.
From 7 a.m. till 4 p.m., Americans side by side with Vietnamese villagers sift through dirt on a mountaintop in for what all the world seems like the middle of nowhere.
Sometimes all the hard work pans out and sometimes it doesn't. They've been on scene here for 3 weeks searching for the remains of 5 U.S. Army soldiers who crashed in an airplane back in 1971, thought to be buried somewhere in this crater. So far, they found nothing, but spirits remain high.
Air Force Master Sergeant William Smith has been with the Joint Task Force for 3.5 years. This is his 24th mission to Southeast Asia.
So I volunteered, and I got the assignment. I've been loving it ever since.
I think it's one of the best things you've done since you've been in the military?
Yes, besides joining the military, yes.
A quarter century after our journey there, the work of what is now called the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency continues. 1,060 Americans killed during the Vietnam War have been identified and returned to their families for burial with full military honors. 1,573 Americans are still unaccounted for. Mike Gooding, 13 News Now.
All this week, we're taking a look back at some of Mike Gooding's greatest hits as he prepares to retire after 40 years on the air here at 13 News Now.
Tonight, Mike travels back to 2005 and brings us his Associated Press award-winning series on his trip to the terrorist detention camp in Guantanamo Bay.
The Guantanamo Bay detention camp was established in 2002 by President George W. Bush to hold illegal enemy combatants following the 9/11 terror attacks. In 2005, photographer Ryan Beard and I traveled to the U.S. Navy base in Cuba to see the prison called Camp Delta for ourselves.
Joint Task Force Guantanamo is a tale of contradictions, not the least of which is the stunning beauty of the tropic island surroundings for the U.S. military terrorist detainee operation. It is located just across the fence from Fidel Castro's communist Cuba.
It's not an easy job to do, but it's getting done.
The job, warehousing more than 500 war on terrorism detainees from 44 different countries.
This is Camp X-Ray, you've probably heard of here at Guantanamo. This is the place the United States first brought war on terrorism detainees back in 2002 and 2003. It's obviously very Spartan, very sparse, and very temporary. Far cry from what the prisoners get today at Camp Delta.
It's troubling that folks who have never visited this facility and know of our mission are alleging that we are mistreating these individuals, which is an absolute false. I mean, we treat every detainee with dignity and respect.
Mike Gooding, 13 News Now.
13 News Now military reporter Mike Gooding is retiring after 40 years on the air. And all this week, he is taking a look back at some of his favorite stories.
So tonight, he travels back to 2007 and revisits his trip to the Horn of Africa. Have a look.
During the War on Terror, we primarily covered combat operations related to Afghanistan and Iraq. But one time in 2007, for our annual Holiday Salute show, we went to the Horn of Africa.
This is Camp Lemonnier, as the name suggests, a former outpost of the French Foreign Legion. It's now a kind of home away from home for some 2,000 American military men and women this Christmas. They're out here in Djibouti, East Africa, fighting the war on terrorism in a most unexpected way. They're doing it not with bombs and bullets, but with goodwill and good deeds.
In what is undeniably one of the most impoverished places on earth, American troops are doing what they can to lend a hand.
It's really a touching experience to come from what we have in the States. It's an eye-opener.
I'm coming to Africa, and it's not often you could come to Africa, you know, on the military's dime. So it's easy. It's good because you can experience, say that, hey, I went to Africa and I went for this reason here. I didn't go just for luxury. I went for to help people out.
Those children will never, they may not even know we're Americans, but it doesn't matter. There are people who came here to help, and maybe they'll remember that somebody in a uniform showed up and did something kind and gentle, and that's a good thing.
At the Horsehead School in the Balala district of Djibouti, every Monday night the Americans come to teach African school children how to speak conversational English. They even let me do my part. I left them with the best lesson I could think of.
We go in and make the world a better place. We don't leave landmines, we leave food and clothes.
Mike Gooding, 13 News Now.
This week, we've been taking a look back at the work of reporter Mike Gooding as he gets ready to retire after 40 years on the air here at 13 News Now.
Wow, we're going to so miss him.
Yeah.
Tonight we go back in time to 1999 and the NATO-led war in Kosovo. Norfolk-based Navy ships and aircraft played a big part in the bombing campaign. Mike was there in the thick of it.
In 1999, the United States contributed troops to the NATO-led war in Kosovo. Hampton Roads-based warships played a big role, which brought us to the Adriatic Sea and Albania.
With Operation Allied Force into its 5th week now, sailors and Marines aboard the Norfolk-based USS Nassau went about their business today 15 miles off the Albanian coast, looking forward to finally heading home. 4 Marine Corps Harrier jump jets launched this day, each one carrying 4 500-pound bombs. When they returned from sorties over Serb targets 2.5 hours later, all but one of those bombs were gone.
Downtown Tirana certainly appears to be bustling and prosperous enough, yet you don't have to get too many kilometers outside the city to see the squalor and poverty the majority of Albanians live in, raising the question if any country could ill afford to be taking in all these refugees. Is it this one? They listen for news about the war and hope the end is soon. For some, time is not on their side. The day's highlights come at mealtime. This day, it's some kind of soup. And for everyone here, there's a story to be told of the brutality and the horror of their final days in their homeland.
Before I left, a day before we escaped, they burned our street.
The UN estimates more than 600,000 people have left Kosovo in the weeks since the war began, some 400,000 of them here to Albania. And where they end up are refugee camps like this one near Durrës.
Mike Gooding, 13 News Now.
The curtain is about to come down on reporter Mike Gooding's 40-year career on the air here at 13 News Now.
This week, we've taken a look back at some of his finest work, and tonight it's a trip back in time to 2004 and the height of the war in Iraq.
Friday night, the first wave put on a fireworks show of sorts in the Eastern Med.
The Iraq War began on March 20th, 2003, when the U.S., joined by the UK, Australia, and Poland, initiated the shock and awe bombing campaign. In 2004, we reported from Camp Anaconda.
Well, Joe, another Christmas season is at hand, and thousands of Hampton Roads military personnel are on assignment, far-fetched places all over the world, including this, Camp Anaconda, Iraq. It's the major fuel convoy hub for U.S. and coalition forces, smack in the middle of the Sunni Triangle in a place called Balad. This base is all about logistics, getting the needed supplies to the troops out in the field, and all those convoys need protection. That's where the Stryker Brigade out of Fort Lewis, Washington comes in. Private First Class Mike Rust is a graduate of Oscar Smith High School in Chesapeake, and he is a driver of the 19-ton, 8-wheeled light armored vehicle. It seems military service was in Rust's blood.
My dad was in the military, and my grandpa and my mom's dad. It's kind of like a family tradition to be in the military.
So far, so good for you?
So far, so good. Couldn't have been a happier choice.
One key to keeping the troops safe, fortifying their vehicles. At a shop called the Skunk Works, they attach half-inch thick plates of steel to Humvees and transport trucks in a vital process called up-armoring.
It is very important. It protects soldiers on the road. We had first-hand experiences where people, if these vehicles weren't armored, they would not be here today.
Mike Gooding, 13 News Now.
Danger and uncertainty. The days right after the 9/11 terror attacks required courage and determination for the men and women on the front lines.
13 News Now military reporter Mike Gooding was there as Mike prepares to retire tomorrow after 40 years on the air. We continue to look back at some of his best work, including this report from 2001 and the war in Afghanistan.
After the 9/11 terror attacks, the U.S. responded in a big way. At 2 decades, it became America's longest war. We were there for the start of Operation Enduring Freedom.
During the air campaign's first week alone, it's believed the Enterprise launched more than 800 combat sorties, and the ship's captain gives his troops A-pluses across the board, noting that the pilots delivered an estimated 85% of their ordnance on target.
Pretty quickly after the shock kind of settled, we all were anxious to do something that we were, if America needed some help and called for some action, we were ready to go do it. And so we wanted to turn the ship around right then and head back to where it was needed.
Yeah, everyone was ready to go home, but when this happened, the shock of all of it was probably as great for us as anybody at home as you watched it play out live. But with that being said, I think everybody was ready to stay here for as long as it took.
I think it's kind of messed up what they did, but now they're going to pay for it.
It feels good to actually be a part of what's going on and knowing that we're helping annihilate this threat.
And so, for now, they remain 2 American carrier battle groups, 24 ships, and 30,000 sailors and Marines in all, and a 3rd carrier group, the Theodore Roosevelt, on the way. Mike Gooding, 13 News, aboard USS Enterprise in the Arabian Sea.
The war finally came to an end in 2021. With around 2,400 U.S. service members killed and another 20,700 Americans wounded.
Whoa, nail it. Whoa. Coming back to the left.
Is a bittersweet moment here at 13 News Now. It's the last hurrah for Mike Gooding, who is retiring after 40 years at this TV station.
40 years in one spot. His final story gives us a little insight into what makes him tick. Mike is here with us to talk about flying with the Navy's Blue Angels and, in a way, maintaining the family business. Mike.
Well, that's right, Connor and Janet. Anybody who knows me knows my dad was a Navy pilot, and for that one brief shining moment, I got to soar up into the skies with him. It was a real full circle moment for me in 2007 when I got to fly with the Blue Angels.
Whoa, nail it. Whoa. Coming back to the left. How'd you like that? Was that all right? Yeah, it was pretty good. All right, we got a little bit of airspace above us. Now we can do a couple more things. Let's do them kind of gentle, all right? Okay. Feeling a little rough. All right.
Did you throw up?
No, I did not. I did almost black out for about 1 second.
And while my performance that day was unimpressive, it did help me fulfill a dream, to fly in a jet just like my Navy pilot dad did. And then years later, in 2022, the icing on the cake. The Association of Naval Aviation installed a plaque for me upon their monument, right next to my dad's.
Well, it's a total surprise, of course, and I'm so flattered by it and, so honored to be, in the company of all these other great heroes. I feel extremely unworthy, but I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful they did that for me.
And so what a thrill ride that was for me then, as the entire last 40 years have been. I can't believe I've gotten to do all the stuff I've gotten to do. And it's kind of like Clarence the Angel says to George Bailey in the famous movie, you've really had a wonderful life.
You've had a wonderful life, a wonderful time here. And this is really bittersweet because you've touched so many people who work here at the station over so many years and helped shape a lot of careers.
It's crazy. Facebook has just blown up. I've gotten hundreds and hundreds of people telling me just how awesome I am. And it's kind of hard to hear that, but it's been wonderful.
And it's true.
Awesome.
That's right.
Yes.
And you talk about all the things you've gotten to do, but for us, we've gotten to work with Mike Gooding. Mm-hmm. That's going up in a Blue Angel for someone like me.
Here's a quick ridiculous story. I've got a picture of kindergarten. My daughter, who's the kid right directly behind my daughter in the kindergarten picture? This guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. brought it into the station. We put it up on the wall.
Okay.
I was just as poorly dressed back then. Yeah.
For the past 40 years, 13 News Now military reporter Mike Gooding has told the stories of service members across Hampton Roads and around the world. Throughout the years, he has given a voice to the military community and given civilians perspective into the issues they face.
He has been tremendous. Alex Littlehales gives us a closer look at how Mike Gooding has impacted our community and beyond.
The year is 1985. New Coke has just hit the shelves, and on television sets across Hampton Roads arrived a new face at WVEC.
For 25 years now. But what the Flight of the Intruder is really all about.
Mike Gooding.
Movie theaters are closed, but the Willoughby Inn restaurant and bar,
The good man.
it's not closed.
For those who know him best.
And I often wonder where the phrase "the good man" came from.
There's this fellow over in Portsmouth. He's a pretty good writer. Doesn't know much about TV. But I think he might be good. You might want to look at
Here
him.
on the grocery store aisles where, even after all these years, Elvis is still making front page news.
Over the last 40 years, has not changed a whole lot. The only thing that's changed, he lost the mustache.
And they say no place in the country would be better for them than Hampton Roads, Virginia.
40 years over our airwaves, making him 13's longest on-air talent in station history. Name a story, and Mike has probably covered it. From the state capitol
The irony of ironies, Senator Stallings' bill finally passes, but
to the nation's capital.
and the time has now come for Congress to get involved.
Name a politician, Mike has probably talked to them.
Whether you were governor of the state, whether you were a common citizen being interviewed by Mike, he made it understandable.
If you believe in the law of averages, dole is due.
When it comes to government, politics, the military, there's nobody else.
And I think he is so successful in that because he is just like your buddy.
For example, I'm going 55 right now, and I'm the slow guy on the road.
Off Interstate 64, just north of Williamsburg.
Gooding has seen it all in 40 years at the forefront, covering the stories that matter most.
What Mike has developed in these 40 years is the respect of viewers, the respect of the military, the enlisted, the admirals, the politicians, statewide and national as well. Unparalleled in the respect that others hold for him.
How's that?
If there is one thing you can count on from Mike is his commitment to the military.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Who had never served, was never in the military. This guy knew more about the Navy and the military in the local area than anybody else I ever knew, and he never even served. I mean, he had a father who was, a pretty famous pilot.
It's of course been 7 years since the U.S.-led coalition defeated Saddam Hussein.
For almost a decade, it may have felt like Mike spent more time outside the country than in it.
Some 4,500 Americans call this place out here in the middle of nowhere home. I'm Mike Gooding. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be exploring the question, are they stretched too thin?
Covering military deployments to Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, the Adriatic Sea, the Persian Gulf, just to name a few. Almost a decade of jet setting, making sure his community knew what was happening across the world.
It's so rare, and there's Mike Gooding pushing 40 years at one place. Mike has not let up.
You don't remember what 30 years ago happened in Hampton Roads. You could go to Gooding for that.
This will remain their home away from home.
There is something to be said about the importance for a local community to see one face and hear one voice.
Very real and scary proposition.
For so long.
To not see him in the building when I walk in every morning, that's going to be a sad day.
But now it's Mike saying so long to the rest of us.
Mike Gooding. Mike Gooding. Mike Gooding. Mike Gooding, 13 News.
So, for old time's sake.
Okay, so it's not Vail, but it is the best thing we've got going around here. And besides, I didn't want to let the kids have all the fun today. Mike Gooding, 13 News at Mount Trashmore in Virginia Beach.
How about that? How about that? It was Alex Littlehales reporting nearly 40 years, Mike Gooding just giving voice to the military community and just the entire community here in Hampton Roads. And I said to someone, I said, he might be the most trusted reporter in Hampton Roads, but perhaps possibly the state of Virginia.
I don't know about all that.
Oh my gosh. Mike's joining us again in the studio for one last time. maybe, we might get you back
yeah,
here.
we'll see
A little special visit. Thank you for all of the work.
Well, thank you guys. And, I've gotten a ridiculous amount of airtime the last couple of days, and I'm so flattered. Thank you, TV station, for letting me, tell all these stories. Anyways, it really flew by. I mean, I can't believe 40 years have come and gone, but all good things must come to an end. And I really just want to thank the military and the TV station for letting me do all the cool stuff they let me do. And I would sign off by saying this: local news matters. It can inform, it can uncover, it can protect, and it can entertain. Hopefully I succeeded a little bit anyway in doing all those things these years. And really just thank you, everybody. Thanks for letting me come into your living rooms every night. This has been awesome.
Oh, and you've been awesome. And of course you've succeeded way more than just a little bit. And we're going to celebrate after the show.
Yeah, I can't wait. We're going to party down.